Wesley Tucker, who's an ag business specialist in the Polk County area, is going to provide us a bit of a market update.
Last May, when we started coming out with the forecast for 2020, this was going to be our year. I took the hog numbers off of here, but between ASF in the hogs and we were actually starting to plateau or maybe even get rid of a few beef cows, this was going to be our year. We were forecasting 121 for a year-long average for finished cattle prices. Boy, what a wild ride it has been, hasn't it? Just look what has happened to us in the last 3 months. This is the thing that really broke our back. This is the 6-day moving average for the average daily slaughter, the black line being the 2020. I think plants really saw what was coming as COVID started to spread from the coast inward. And they really tried to ramp those packing plants up just as hard as they could there, pushing those plants for all they were worth. Then once COVID hit into the Midwest, those plants started having workers get sick. They started having workers just decide not to show up because they were afraid of getting sick, all of those issues. And you can just see how that black line just dropped like it had just fallen through the ice on a frozen pond. Now, the good thing is 2 weeks ago when we were talking about these numbers, the 1st of May, we were sitting down there around about a 70,000 head average and thinking, oh my gosh, is this thing going to keep going down? The plants got aggressive. They went in, they moved workers a little bit further apart. The president came out with his Defense Act declaration. We've tried to really get these plants back up and going. Several of the plants that were closed have come on board. But we are still, I think we slaughtered 91,000 head, and we have to go all the way back to April 14th was the last time we slaughtered that many in a day. So we are improving, we are going in the right direction, but the problem is that we have just created this huge backlog of cattle that are ready to go to the packing houses. Because of the shortage in meat that you are hearing talked about in the news, which it's not a shortage of beef, is it? We've got lots of beef that need to be slaughtered. We just can't get them slaughtered. So there is actually a shortage of meat that is making it out to the grocery stores and to the restaurants. You know, a lot of people are talking about, you know, if you go to restaurants, there's certain beef items you can purchase or certain ones you can't. And so that's why we're starting to see $9, $10 a pound on hamburger. So, you know, we've created this situation where we backed up going to be over 1 million head of finished cattle. So what happens now as we start getting those packing plants back up? Are we going to get them back to full capacity or not? If we do start actually working through this backlog, what is that going to have to do with prices? Be realistic. Prices are probably going to go down for finished cattle going forward. Now, what does that mean for feeder cattle, for heavyweight, 800-pound feeder cattle? Well, placements for feeder cattle was at all-time low in March. We were down by 23% from the year over from last year. April will be down, maybe not quite as much, but we'll be down a lot. So we're kind of creating what some people call a hole in placements. May looks like we will be back up more towards normal, but we have a lot of cattle here in May coming out of your wheat pasture situations and stuff like that that are having to find a home. They're having to compete with all of this backlog of finished cattle that aren't leaving yet. So that is kind of creating a problem. I'll be honest with you, both feeder and calf prices have improved, possibly even more than we would have expected at this point. As more and more of those heavy feeders start coming to town, don't be surprised if maybe they don't go down. The futures market is forecasting slight increases going forward, but what really is going to happen when all of those start showing up? The real question for me is on calves. So all these fall-born calves that we're looking to find a home, that we're weaning this last month or getting ready to wean, what do we do with them? Not to even mention the spring-born calves that we'll be weaning in a few months. Looking again at the futures market and looking at expectations, there is a lot of optimism, to be quite honest with you, a lot more optimism than we might expect in the markets right now. And prices have improved substantially in the last 2 weeks at our larger auction markets. The real question is, what happens long term as we go forward? What are the scenarios going forward? A good scenario where people come back out, COVID-19 is done, people come back out, they get back to work, they go back to eating out, great, and we have this surge back of everyone wanting to get back to their daily lives and eating a lot of meat, and prices rebound and do really well. But contrary to that, a situation where we get into this fall, COVID-19 comes back out, we shut down people's jobs again, or we shut down the restaurants and we lose that demand. That's a very different scenario. I only point this out to say we really don't know what is going to happen in the third quarter and the fourth quarter. There are actually some chances with the futures market where they're off to lay off some risk if a person wanted to. I know no one likes using LRP and some of those things, but there's some chances that prices could go down. I hope they don't. I hope COVID-19 is something we're not going to be talking about much more, and we can look beyond this. But there is a scenario out there where prices, at least in 2020, don't get back to where they were prior to COVID-19. So just make sure you're watching your cost and making sure you're planning with your herd the best that you can to control what you can control. And then don't just hold out to hoping that prices get back to where they were prior to.